Okay, updates. Um, couple of funny things. One, I bricked my atlas. So, since that's probably the only reason some people are watching this, how the hell do you break your atlas? There you go. I did a ritual and I got the opportunity to get a Vault of Azir, and I'm like, well, clearly we're doing that. So now I got red missions. I'm working on my white maps. I'm almost done with my white maps, and I'm gonna start working my yellow maps. Um, I'm not at red maps yet. So yeah, be aware of that. If you get the opportunity for a Vault of Aziri, you might accidentally, start getting red missions earlier than you want. Kind of surprised though. This is my first red missions that I have, first missions I've gotten. And it's today, like Tuesday. I was in maps on Saturday. So I wonder if we get the missions at a different cadence. But yeah, there was nothing for pure missions that I would have anticipated. Not been using many of the missions so far. All of them Nikos. And I've been focusing... nope, not you. Nico on my Atlas. With the idea that there are certain nodes I can grab, like contains fire items, contains cold items, right? This is crafting currency. We are able to do some pretty serious work with those. And, sometimes you find some maps too. So this is like monster level 74. Whereas if I do one of my maps, let's just do a 3. Still finishing out the last of my maps. This is probably like monster level 70? 70, yes. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with the character other than that. It's pretty decent damage. I am on a 5 link now. I added in hypothermia. So hypothermia is in a way a total trap. And the reason for that is that if you don't do enough damage, and we have really small hits on this build, to trigger the ability to trigger the chill, well, then we are in trouble because now hypothermia doesn't work for us anymore. So your hits become smaller once your hits become smaller, which is just not a good thing to ever get into. So I'm looking at different ways to solve that. I have a Wintertide brand now. And Wintertide brand is just linked with increased duration, faster casting. It is there to put the chill on, and hopefully that will, in some cases, allow us to get past of our issues of chill. As you can see, our damage is still pretty pitiful. But we're still using the same bow that dropped from Kitava. Longest I've ever used a Kitava drop. Actually, it's probably the only time I've ever used a Kitava drop. But the fact that I'm still using it is kind of shocking. As far as flasks, we have one flask on auto trigger. Just one flask on auto trigger. The amount of survivability it gives you is bonkers. It really reduces all of the small hits down to nothing. And yeah, makes life pretty good. Our resists are currently being fixed by flasks. Not ideal. But it's good enough, I guess. Let's find the boss real quick. I'll do this on my own time. Oh, Red Beast is also a pretty good idea of seeing what damage looks like and survivability. So yeah. It's not ideal, it's not great, but we are able to sustain our flash charges. Because we are able to sustain our flash charges, we can have the survivability we want, and that allows us to mitigate some of our pitiful damage. But, it's a 5 link on a pretty crappy bow. So we have a lot of opportunities to improve that. And we didn't use any of our additional damage mods right now. Like we didn't use either Hydrosphere or Winterbrand. Winterbrand doesn't really do much, but Hydrosphere would give us exposure. So Hydrosphere exposure. Hydrosphere exposure is pretty pitiful. But we do have the benefit that Hydrosphere exposure is easy to scale. Right, there is the Elemental Mastery, which makes all the minimum exposures 18%, and since Hydrosphere does by default a 10% exposure, that's a pretty big deal. Also, we have both doing cold and lightning, so again that's one of those cases where Hydrosphere would be good. Right now we are still using, let's look at our links real quick. We have Precision Grace, Mark on Hit with Poacher's Mark. Poacher's Mark is not amazing. I mean, it does physical damage with hits. We do a lot of hits, so that'd be good. Minus physical damage reduction. We have a little bit of physical, so it does a little bit. But mainly it just gives us an insane amount of sustain. Molten Shell on right click. Dash, movement skill. We're only using determination out of this one. We're using grace. We're not using precision. We should put precision on life. Elemental weakness is something that I think I'm gonna start moving towards. It might be better than actually using Poacher's Mark from a damage perspective. We'll see. We'll try that out. We have increased duration and then faster casting because our cast speed is awful, although we do have a Quicksilver Flask. Wintertide for applying chill automatically, which is pretty good. And then Hydrosphere for exposure. And then our goal will be to leverage that exposure to help mitigate resist. I try to do cast on damage taken with Elemental Equilibrium and fire spells. Sustaining the mana was just a nightmare, so that's not worth doing. So next what we're going to do is we want to get rid of this point, the dex. We've been respecking a bit. Get rid of this. Get the node mastery here that makes all of our exposures at least 18%. That's a pretty big deal. That almost doubles the exposure we get from Hydrosphere. Pick up Entrench, and we want to pick up Inexorable, just because we get hit so often. Getting the 3 endurance charges for free is a pretty big deal. Other than that, 3 is still moderately scuffed. Like these nodes up here are not ideal. We have a lot of accuracy that we don't really need. We did at one point try to use precise technique, but I like my life and maintaining my accuracy was just difficult. We might go back to precise technique once we have better gearing. At this point, all my gear is floor. We have an int fixing helmet, 40 int. I'm very excited about this. We have a 5 link, which I got from, I think, League Mechanic. Yeah. Chaos resist, some fire resist, suppression, all good. Gloves are pretty amazing. Right? Dex, not ideal, but we have life, damage, and pretty good resist. Belt is a floor drop. 20% reduced flash charges used is just amazing. Always a fan of that stat. And then we have a bunch of resists on there. Some chaos resist and movement speed on our boots. Again, not amazing. It's floor stuff. Int and life on our ring. This is a pretty awful ring. But my int is really a limiting factor, so hopefully we can find a better ring with some int. Crew reward. I mean, it's 60% increased damage. 10% movement speed. I tried to get the faded version of this. People don't even bother picking up the faded version and to sell. Like, it's... I couldn't find it. It might be there now, but I couldn't find it in the past. This is a good ring. Double damage, 44 life, 16 all res. I mean, it's pretty good from like floor trash. Still the same quiver. So, not too bad. Right? Like, we're pretty much running solo self-found gear at this... actually, we're running solo self-found gear except for this Flask base, which I got as a donation from a buddy of mine. And this one could actually be rolled with my current Flask level, so the eye level doesn't actually matter on this one. Yeah. Biggest bottleneck, regrets. I traded in all my scours for regrets. I would like at least 2 more regrets to get rid of these 2 nodes. Yeah, once we get rid of those 2 nodes, we can have the increased exposure effect. And then with another level, we should be at an inexorable, oh god, whatever that is. And then maybe pick up Vigor. Might be worth it for the extra node. More fizz reduction. At that point, we should be a pretty nutty fizz reduction. And our flasks will do the rest. We have Crab Flask, 23 resists. We use those resists. 6 charges on being hit by an enemy, 55% increased evasion, pretty amazing. 3 Shock Ignite, 6 charges when hit by an enemy, and 6 charges when hit by an enemy here as well, with immunity to freeze, which is trash. It'd be really much better if I had something different there. And we are almost done with our white maps, and then we'll go into yellow maps. And I've got a feeling that we'll probably be fine in yellow maps, especially if we can actually find like an upgrade or 2. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. Definitely had a bit of a rough start trying to be too greedy. But now that I'm doing well, Flask shenanigans, although only a single Flask is automated right now. And that Flask has not ideal mods. Once we finish up the Flask shenanigans setup, okay,
full of youth and vibrancy,
we'll have pretty much a fully functional character, and then we'll see what happens next. Due to some unfortunate circumstances, I will most likely not be able to play a whole lot on my main character. It's a mapping character. Mapping characters and laptops don't mix, and we have to do some travel. So, yeah. It is what it is. So that's kind of the update. I think that it's gonna be fine. I've heard some people mention that they are having issues getting into red maps, where the damage isn't there yet. I have to admit, the damage for this character isn't there yet. But then again, I'm still using a bow I found in the acts, and I'm undoing some of the unfortunate decisions I made during leveling. So yeah, once I'm done with that, life will be a lot better. Alright, let's... Is there a way for me to be greedy and keep this and show high level content? No. So I'll probably call it at that. There will be another update once I find a couple more regrets. I think that my damage is going to go up significantly, like 20-30%. If I get lucky with any of the bow drops or any of the essences that I've been using on my bows, that will make it easy for my damage to increase. Right now our damage is crafted attack speed. Yeah. I mean, got a 9%, which is nice. Tier 4, Tier 6, and Tier 5 elemental damage. I mean, that can be a lot better. Right? There's a lot of improvement there. Even with the current items I find, there's a lot of ways for that to be a lot better. So hopefully we'll get there. I'm pretty confident that we're going to get to the low yellow tiers. And in the meantime, we'll be saving up Atlas missions because it will be a little bit before we hit red tiers. Yeah, don't do that. Although I'd probably do it again.